What happens when a nation known for its cutting-edge technology finds itself in the crosshairs of escalating trade tensions?
South Korea's trade minister is in a precarious situation, journeying to the United States to plead for tariff exemptions from the Trump administration.
This isn't just a back and forth between two countries, it's part of a global maelstrom impacting economies far and wide. As the stakes grow higher, the question lingers: is South Korea's approach one of desperation, or does it possess a clever strategy in its pursuit of free trade? With looming tariffs affecting crucial exports, the South Korean government is scrambling.
The recent assertion by President Trump to impose hefty tariffs on steel and aluminum only adds fuel to the fire. Trump's administration views South Korea through a lens of concern, citing a significant trade deficit that they feel must be addressed immediately. Japan's reaction is different. While its leaders are inclined to increase tariffs in response, South Korea is adamant about seeking relief. Instead of simply retaliating, they are considering alternatives, including strengthening trade relations with Canada. The growing partnership with Canada, particularly in energy and steel, hints at a possible shift in alliances that could reshape trade dynamics.
But will continued energy talks with Canada be enough to alleviate pressures from the U.S.?
As the South Korean minister fights for concessions, the atmosphere in Washington is thick with tension. Calls for increased cooperation see him positioned delicately between both sides.
Sensing vulnerabilities.
South Koreans propose a win-win scenario. If tariffs are relaxed, they promise to ramp up energy imports from the U.S., support American farmers, and even explore joint manufacturing opportunities in the automotive industry.
But is this diplomatic dance effective, or merely a desperate plea? Amidst these discussions, questions arise. Can South Korea manage to sway the Trump administration towards a more amicable trade relationship? Or will these efforts go unrecognized in the ocean of international negotiation?
Delving deeper reveals cracks in the facade of confidence. Major Korean conglomerates worry about their future in the country's reliance on American markets. Perhaps the true surprise lies in the evolving narrative of global trade. The partnership with Canada unfolds like a new chapter. If South Korea can successfully rope in Canadian resources, could they establish a counterbalance to U.S. pressures? The unfolding scenarios present a tantalizing twist in the ongoing saga of trade wars. As the dust settles, how will these diplomatic strategies centered on timber, oil, and steel reshape the landscape of international commerce? Stay tuned as the narrative continues to unfold. In a world dominated by trade tensions and economic stakes, South Korea's struggle becomes palpable. As the Trump administration deliberates imposing tariffs, the South Korean economy hangs by a thread, fearing severe repercussions. With nearly half of their foreign trade tied to significant markets like the United States and Europe, the stakes are monumental. Will they find a way to evade this looming trade storm, or will it shake the very foundations of their economy? Recent revelations highlight a rapidly evolving scenario. South Korea has swiftly captured a significant portion of the United States market, thanks to its cutting-edge technology and high-quality products. This meteoric rise, however, has drawn the ire of President Trump, who insists that domestic manufacturers are at a disadvantage. In his quest to rectify what he perceives as a trade imbalance, Trump has unleashed a barrage of tariffs, placing South Korean companies in an untenable position. These firms, previously sheltered by a free trade agreement, are now left scrambling for solutions. Unexpectedly thrust into a corner, major South Korean corporations have begun to pivot. Some are contemplating the expansion of production facilities within the United States, strategically maneuvering to mitigate the impact of potential tariffs. Others have openly stated their readiness to absorb higher costs to preserve their trade routes. However, a common thread emerges: the urgent need to secure tax exemptions and navigate this crisis unscathed.
Against this backdrop, South Korea's trade minister sets his sights on Washington, compelled by the pressing need for dialogue.
Yet, headlines paint a grim picture, suggesting a desperate plea rather than a robust negotiation.
Is South Korea truly begging for relief, or is there more to this diplomatic dance?
They are driven by a singular goal: exemption from the harsh import tariffs on steel and aluminum that threaten to cripple their export market.
The narrative thickens as South Korea's trade minister endeavors to sway the Trump administration during high-stakes talks. How will he navigate these turbulent waters while trying to satisfy American demands? As discussions unfold, potential pathways to relief seem murky. Will he manage to ward off economic disaster for South Korean industries, or is this merely the start of a long struggle against impossible odds?
In a shocking twist, recent communications reveal that while South Korea sends out diplomatic signals, alternative trade partnerships are quietly forming with Canada. The Canadian market presents a fresh avenue, particularly in energy and metal trade. This relationship could serve as a lifeboat for South Korea's industrial giants, allowing them to circumvent the impending storm of U.S. tariffs.
But is this a mere smokescreen, or could it lead South Korea into a new era of trade dynamics that might reshape the landscape forever?
The continual tug-of-war highlights not just the immediate economic concerns but the broader implications for international diplomacy. As South Korean firms lean into this precarious situation, they face an uphill battle for their survival.
Will their strategies pay off?
Or will the shadows of protectionism engulf them completely? This dilemma continues to unfold, keeping both economists and global observers on the edge of their seats, awaiting a decisive turn in the saga of South Korea's trade ambitions.
South Korea's fight for tariff relief isn't just a polite request, it's a high-stakes battle unfolding behind closed doors.
They already secured a minor exemption, but the steel titans of Korea aren't backing down. A huge slice of their exports flows to America, and instead of retreating, these giants are pushing hard to preserve their stronghold in the U.S. market. Political chaos at home has shaken government influence, sparking bold moves from businesses.
Some companies have even taken their own lobbying initiatives, sidestepping official channels. How much sway does the government truly hold amid this uncertainty?
This question is driving Korea's powerful conglomerates to unite like never before. Then there's the unexpected wildcard, Canada. South Korea and Canada share deep diplomatic ties, but recently their partnership has intensified, especially in energy and metals. Canada's vast oil reserves aren't just a resource, they represent a strategic lifeline, an alternative route for energy supplies. Korean steelmakers might be eyeing Canada as their backdoor into the North American market, potentially skirting around those punishing U.S. tariffs.
Is South Korea quietly sidestepping America by ramping up coalitions with Canada?
Few official eyes have confirmed this, but the signs are compelling. This alliance might just redefine global trade in the coming years.
Across the Pacific, American voices argue fiercely.
Some in the Trump administration say Korea benefits too much from U.S. military protection, demanding they play fair in trade.
They accuse Korea's steel industry of flooding the U.S.
with excess products, sometimes nearly subsidized, dealing a heavy blow to American steel workers. Seoul fires back, insisting their competitive prices reflect unmatched technology and efficiency, no secret deals, no sabotage.
This clash of narratives heats up the debate. Behind the scenes, what's really driving these disputes? Is it economics, security, or something far more tangled? South Korea's trade minister is heading to Washington with a clear agenda: meet with key trade figures and pitch a win-win deal.
If America grants tariff exemptions, Korea promises to boost imports of U.S. energy products, support farmers, and forge joint ventures in the automotive industry.
It's a high-stakes dance of give and take, where diplomatic finesse is as crucial as economic leverage. But will this delicate balancing act sway a White House known for tough stances?
Meanwhile, talk swirls about Korea's growing reliance on Canada's oil and steel markets. Once deeply tied to Middle Eastern energy, Korea seems poised to diversify its supply chains. Canada, eager to shield itself from unpredictable American trade policies, welcomes these partnerships, seeking broader autonomy.
Yet, this evolving dynamic sends ripples through Washington. Is Canada's closeness with Korea a strategic message to the U.S., or a quiet challenge?
As these powers shuffle their pieces on the global chessboard, one thing is certain: the impact will echo far beyond tariffs.
The tension builds. Could South Korea's new alliances push the United States to rethink its hardline tariff policies? Or will this push the global trading system to the brink of an unprecedented confrontation?
The world is watching, breaths held, as alliances shift and the battle for economic dominance intensifies.
What happens next could reshape international trade forever. The South Korean trade minister's visit to Washington carries both urgency and desperation.
It's a high-stakes negotiation where the stakes are towering tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. Though some argue the tariffs mainly target countries like Canada, Mexico, and China, the implications resonate globally.
In the backdrop, South Korea seeks tariff exemptions crucial for its steel and automotive industries, which are feeling the pressure. What's the South Korean minister aiming to achieve in this heated meeting? The objective is clear: connect with the influential figures within Trump's trade circle. The strategy?
Present a compelling case for tax exemptions while promising to amplify imports of American energy products and strengthen bilateral ties in industries like automotive manufacturing.
If they display a commitment to American interests, could that yield the exemptions they so desperately need?
As tensions rise, the media in South Korea amplifies the narrative of pleading for relief, framing this as a critical moment. The truth is, the stakes are incredibly high, not just economically but also in terms of security.
With North Korean tensions looming, South Korea's reliance on American military support makes severing ties over trade disputes untenable. Retaliation is simply not an option.
Instead, diplomacy becomes their strongest weapon, yet political unrest complicates the picture. The government insists on rational negotiations, but corporations pulse with impatience, taking measures into their own hands as trust in government falters. This self-initiated lobbying by South Korean companies exemplifies a shifting power dynamic, where they're sidelining the government in pursuit of securing tax relief.
So, what does this increasing trade with Canada imply?
Historically reliant on the Middle East for crude oil, South Korea is seeking alternatives, and Canada's vast reserves present a golden opportunity. This is not merely a transaction but a strategic pivot, allowing South Korea to fortify its energy security while cushioning itself against American pressure.
As South Korea forges ties with Canada, an intriguing question arises: is this a collaboration or a quiet rebellion against the dominance of U.S. trade policies? And how will America react to its allies inching closer to an alternate trading partner?
Tensions simmer as the trading landscape shifts, with whispers of backstabbing echoing through diplomatic corridors.
What will be the ultimate outcome in this high-stakes chess game, where every move holds the potential to reshape global trade dynamics?
Some companies have already lost faith in their government's ability to handle the tariff crisis.
They've begun direct talks with Washington through their own lobbying teams. The headline? Big players are taking matters into their own hands, sidestepping official channels. This revelation isn't isolated, it reflects a broader wave of global trade conflict. The current U.S. leadership is recalibrating deals with China, Europe, Canada, and Mexico. Their bold mission? To reignite American manufacturing by slapping steep tariffs on imports.
Now, let's zoom in on a fascinating development: South Korea's expanding oil and steel trade with Canada.
What's really happening beneath the surface?
Picture this: South Korea once leaned heavily on the Middle East for oil and its derivatives. The scent of distant deserts and the hum of oil refineries symbolized that reliance. But with global energy markets shifting, Korea eyes fresh alternatives. Canada, boasting the world's second-largest oil reserves after the United States, now emerges as a promising new source.
Could this be Korea's strategic move to diversify oil imports and shield itself from future pressures coming from its powerful trading partner?
At the same time, Ottawa is carefully trying to keep its economic independence from Washington's aggressive trade tactics. The US and Canada share deeply intertwined trade ties, but Canada wants to avoid putting all its eggs in one basket. Expanding alliances with players like South Korea fits this game plan perfectly.
Steel tells a similar story. Korean steel giants, wary of heavy American tariffs, are exploring a backdoor into North America through Canada.
This tactic is riddled with complications. Just imagine the tangled web of tariffs, regulations, and negotiations that ensue when Canada and the US themselves are locked in disputes over similar steel duties. Canada, unlike the rigid US stance, leans toward negotiation and upholds free trade principles more strongly.
This stance fuels Korean speculation. Is it possible to bypass harsh US tariffs partially by routing goods through Canada?
The legal maze is daunting, no doubt, but history shows trade often breeds creative workarounds.
What hangs heavily in the balance now is Washington's reaction.
U.S. officials are watching every movement of oil and steel between Canada and South Korea with hawk-like attention.
Is Ottawa quietly sending a diplomatic message by cozying up to Seoul? The Canadian government insists they're just safeguarding their national interests, not poking the American bear. But if the Trump administration is casting its net wider, tightening tariffs indiscriminately, could Canada's growing closeness with Korea be seen as a betrayal? Might this new North American-Asian axis sting Washington more than expected?
The smell of burning steel mingles with the sharp scent of political tension in this global trade battlefield.
How will this intricate dance between nations reshape economies and alliances? The answers remain shrouded in a complex puzzle of diplomacy, economics, and power plays.
And in this high-stakes game, every move echoes loudly across the world stage.
What happens next may redefine global trade for years to come. In today's global economic landscape, the looming reality of trade wars creates a tension-filled atmosphere. As nations jostle for position, South Korea finds itself walking a tightrope, desperately seeking tariff exemptions from the Trump administration. With the stakes exceptionally high, South Korea's trade minister is on a mission to persuade Washington to ease the financial strain of high tariffs, which have rippled outwards to touch nearly every corner of the globe. But what if South Korea's plea falls on deaf ears? Imagine a cacophony of voices echoing through the polished halls of power in Washington, where the air is thick with uncertainty. The looming tariffs, 25% on steel and aluminum, cast a long shadow over South Korean shores, threatening to throw an economic powerhouse into chaos. The once secure umbrella of the U.S.-Korea Free Trade Agreement feels less like protection and more like a precarious perch over a financial abyss. As the South Korean minister approaches negotiations, he must navigate a battlefield littered with questions. Will Washington listen? Is it too late to salvage a trade relationship that feels increasingly fragile? Experts warn that should negotiations crumble, unemployment could skyrocket and the future of industry giants like Samsung and Hyundai hangs by a thread. The tension is palpable as government officials ponder, how much longer can we rely on a friendship that teeters on the brink of collapse? Meanwhile, whispers of alliances form as South Korea looks towards Canada, a potential Plan B. The allure of strong ties with a friendly neighbor promises new avenues for trade, especially in energy and steel, regions where tariffs could be circumvented. As the minister weighs his options, one question looms larger than the rest: could this partnership signal a shift in global dynamics, prompting whispers of betrayal to echo back to the United States? As our story unfolds, this gripping exploration of international relations begs the question, in the face of evolving landscapes, who will emerge victorious? As South Korea balances delicately between diplomacy and desperation, one thing is clear: the world is watching, and the stakes are higher than ever. If the efforts for tariff exemptions succeed, the tension in South Korea may ebb, ushering relief for manufacturers and consumers alike. However, if this lifeline fails, the reverberations could destabilize not just an economy, but an entire industry reliant on the U.S. market. Could this potential upheaval ignite a wave of innovation, forcing companies to adapt quickly to survive? Or will it push them deeper into the shadows, scrambling for security in a rapidly changing economic climate? For South Korea, the relentless pursuit of trade exemptions becomes not just a matter of economic interest but a race against time, a critical turning point in crafting a sustainable future amidst the shifting tides of international policy. The world holds its breath, awaiting the outcome of negotiations that may reshape the very fabric of global commerce itself. South Korea's government is trapped in a high-stakes diplomatic dance, balancing reliance on the United States as an indispensable market with the fears of breaking away, a move seen as political suicide, while grappling with North Korea tensions through shifting strategies of diplomacy, sanctions, and middle ground agreements with Washington, all while quietly nurturing partnerships like one with Canada. In this powder keg of global trade, where every move feels like stepping on glass, fragmented by the sharp cracks of breaking alliances and the acrid smell of looming tariffs that sting like betrayal in the air, how desperate must Seoul feel to soften the blow? Is their plea for exemptions really begging, or a shrewd play in a world where Trump's tariffs hit like a sledgehammer on fragile economies? Imagine the weight of history pressing down, the echo of past decisions reverberating in boardrooms reeking of polished mahogany and desperation. American support has been a lifeline: military shelters, economic boosts that propelled South Korea's rise from war-torn ashes to tech giant. Now, with a trade war brewing,
threatening the core of their exports: steel, automobiles, electronics. The government feels besieged, skin prickling under public scrutiny.
One side of the debate accuses them of clinging too tightly, voices rising in unison: "We owe our prosperity to the US, don't ruin it." The other cries out in nationalist fervor: "It's humiliating to always bow, where's our pride?"
This bitter internal conflict, a roiling storm of heated arguments and slammed doors, humiliates political foes, forcing Seoul's leaders to navigate choppy waters without drowning their alliances.
What shocking truth might flip this script, turning humiliation into hidden strength? Shifting gears, the spotlight turns to Canada's siren call, a seemingly benign overture that whispers of alternative paths amid the chaos.
Ottawa's maneuvers to deepen ties with Seoul, think surging oil and metals trades, paint a picture of a modest pivot, Canada's vast reserves shimmering like untapped gold veins against the US's iron grip. With modern infrastructure and free trade agreements already blooming, like the CETA with Europe or talks with Japan, a Pacific Rim network emerges, freer and more diverse. But Trump's tariffs loom like fog, choking this vision. Is it all innocent economics, or a subtle jab at Washington? The question lingers, a provocative prod: could Canada's play save Seoul from economic ruin, or just ignite a larger conflagration? Twist, beneath the surface, whispers of reciprocity hint at South Korea's quiet revolt, diversifying beyond the Middle East's volatile sands to Canada's stable frontiers, a shift that undermines the US's dominance without firing a shot. Will this unexpected alliance humiliate Trump's trade hawks, exposing their fears as overblown paranoia? Delving deeper, the urgency mounts under the watchful eyes of pundits questioning: is Seoul's exemption pursuit overstated drama, or warranted panic? Their close ties to the states born of the US-Korea Free Trade Agreement made them complacent, lulled by security blankets now yanked away. Trump's gunsmoke warnings about deficits and subsidized steel targeted their crown jewels: automotive titans exporting massively, electronics flooding markets. A 25% steel tariff? An existential tremor for Seoul's economy, where US and EU markets swallow half their trade. Quick countermeasures sprang up: plans to build US factories, absorb costs, but the heart's desire? Exemptions, to sidestep the abyss. And the twist? As Ottawa's oil flows north to Seoul, woven with steel deals, it subtly deflects US pressure, a geographic gambit that reroutes production through North America. The aromatic whiff of crude contrasts with the metallic tang of unfinished alloys, tactile reminders of forging new bonds in shadowed workshops. Does this Canadian flirtation mock the US, proving tariffs breed allies, not obedience? Cliffhanger: but is Seoul truly Postmaster General without options, or holding a wild card that could reshape global power? The air thickens with tension, pulses racing. What if this economic chessboard flips violently? At the heart of it, Seoul deploys every diplomatic arrow in its quiver, from ministerial delegations whining and duding Lutnick's trade team to promises of reciprocity, concessions on energy imports, farmer support, joint car ventures. The calculus? A win-win facade masking soft lobbying sweetened the deal for exemptions. Yet headlines scream begging, a stinging label, cringing under the Korean press's harsh glare, spotlighting limited leverage. Spoil ties with Washington? Risky, given North Korea's nukes and US military shields. Retaliation? Impossible, the market clash is one-sided. Diplomacy's their lifeline, laced with corporate impatience, giants lobbying independently, muscling past the government amid political storms. Bitter whiffs of mistrust fill the air, hands clenched on negotiating tables, as press leaks: we don't trust them, handling it ourselves. Twist reveals the ally shift: oil trades with Canada blossom, diversifying Middle East dependency, while steel mills eye North American inroads via Ottawa's open arms. Canada's own pushback against US steel duties fosters this, a creative loophole. Rhetorical sting: is this Seoul's silent revenge, humiliating Trump's isolation tactics by building bridges he's walled off? Cliffhanger teeters on uncertainty: will these threads weave a safe net, or unravel into catastrophic fallout for Seoul's fragile tapestry? Peering ahead, pundits ponder the plausibility: tariffs, exaggerated hysterics, or economic imperative in a conjuncture of global turmoil? Canada's oil-steel dance, pure economics, or veiled US rebuke? Seoul's trade obsession, North Korea woes, limited choices abound. Perhaps shielding from Trump's blitz via Ottawa ties makes sense, without ditching the alliance.
Most likely? A balanced path, hedging bets among partners.
As pawns shift on this chessboard, the sensory onslaught intensifies, the low hum of press conferences, pungent exhaust of idling steel factories, gritty palms of laborers forging futures.
Is humiliation the real weapon here, turning rivals' boasts into ashes? Shocking revelation, what if Soul Scramble exposes a deeper U.S. fragility? Where tariffs breed not dominance, but fragmented empires? Cliffhanger loops back, could this Canadian axis Canadian axis be the unforeseen chink in Trump's armor, leading to a trade tsunami that washes away old certainties? In the swirling chaos of global trade, South Korea finds itself at a critical crossroads.
The nation is striving to establish a balanced agreement with the United States while simultaneously fostering alliances with countries like Canada. This multifaceted approach is vital as South Korea's economy thrives on a diverse array of exports, from cutting-edge electronics to robust automotive manufacturing. Meanwhile, Canada stands as a beacon of potential, boasting vast energy and mineral resources that could reshape international market dynamics.
As both nations move closer, the looming U.S. tariffs threaten to stifle this nascent partnership.
Should these duties remain, we could witness the birth of new trade routes and supply chains, significantly transforming economies across North America and Asia alike.
Yet amidst these exciting possibilities, one pressing question surfaces: what will the meetings between South Korea's trade ministers and the Trump administration yield? Stay tuned as we unravel the outcomes of these high-stakes discussions. Will the Korean delegation secure exemptions, or will they find themselves facing an impasse? Perhaps this is just an initial skirmish in a much larger battle for economic survival.
With the stakes so high, both sides are keenly aware that their next moves could determine the fate of trade relations for years to come. The buzz of negotiations fills the air, heightened by the expectation of pivotal announcements. As whispers of agricultural quotas and automotive regulations circulate among the delegates, the tension rises.
How will South Korea's battle to combat tariffs ultimately unfold? And what are the broader implications of strengthening ties with Canada in this intricate dance of diplomacy? Engage with us in the comments. What do you think is on the horizon for South Korea? Will its strategy prove effective, or will the pressure from Washington escalate?
The consequences of these exciting developments extend far beyond the negotiating table. They're shaping the future of global trade as we know it.
As we eagerly watch, it's essential to reflect on how the actions of today could lay the groundwork for a new economic landscape tomorrow.